Jesus, when he came entering Jerusalem on Palm Sunday, said, "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how I would have gathered you as a hen gathers her chicks underneath her wings. But alas, you did not know the time of your visitation." This is an important idea. God occasionally visits his people, and sometimes we miss it. You know, the first reading talks about the messianic vision, that on the mountain of the Lord will provide a feast for all peoples. The Lord will wipe away the tear from every face, and the reproach of his people he will remove. On that day it will be said, "Behold our God, to whom we look to save us." The hand of the Lord will rest on this mountain. The mountain to which he is referring is Mount Moriah, the hill on which the temple is built, the northernmost hill of the city of Jerusalem. This is one of the great arguments that Jesus could not have been the Messiah because he didn't introduce the Messianic age. But it is interesting to notice that the Jews themselves believe in two Messianic comings. It's the Messiah, the son of Joseph, which always used to make Rabbi Lefkowitz crazy when I kind of raised my eyebrows at that, because of course Jesus' name would have been Jesus, son of Joseph, Joseph being his foster father. The second Messiah who comes in glory, the first Messiah, son of Joseph, is someone who comes to suffer and to prepare the world for the coming of the second Messiah, who is the Messiah, the son of David, who comes in glory. And what Jesus told us was that those two Messiahs that are mentioned in the Talmud are the same. Isn't it nice you get the Talmud here? It's not many Catholic churches you get Talmud. But that Messiah is the same Messiah, that he is both son of Joseph and son of David and will return in glory. Well, what does this have to do with anything? Well, in the Messianic age, we believe Jerusalem will be lifted up above the hills of the world, and that God will provide a feast for his people. Well, that hasn't happened yet. In fact, it is quite the opposite has happened. We live in a world full of tension, primarily because of Jerusalem. You know, oil crisis, Muslim-Christian tensions, the threat of war in the Middle East, they all revolve around Jerusalem. Jesus said, "Alas, Jerusalem, for you did not know the time of your visitation." Jesus was saying that that messianic feast had been postponed because Jerusalem didn't recognize that God himself had come to visit. Well, that's an amazing thing. God visits his people. And today we're also celebrating the feast of Our Lady of Fatima, which I believe is a visitation of God. It was announced by our Blessed Mother, but all of us, I think, know the story of Fatima. If you don't know the story of Fatima, go home, turn on your computer, and do a Google search. Find the story of Our Lady of Fatima. Because, of course, Portugal and the world were in a terrible situation. The First World War was really the beginning of the end of European civilization. The mess we're in now politically and the crisis our culture is in really goes back to that time in which materialism and the ability to make unlimited war really took speed in our culture. Well, the battle was between the collapsing governments of Europe and the up-and-coming socialist revolution. And the socialist revolution had already happened in Portugal, and the church was suppressed and freedom of assembly was suppressed. The churches were in the process of being closed, and 3 little kids kept going out to a field to pray, and the rumor got out that they were having visions of the Blessed Mother. People would follow them to the field, and lo and behold, they wouldn't see the Blessed Mother, but they would see this light. There would be lightning, and then a light would come and descend on this little oak tree, this little scrub oak tree. It was a kind of evergreen. And the tree would sag under the weight of this light. And, well, more and more people came, and the children were arrested and told, if you don't tell us this is a lie, we will kill you. We will boil you in oil. If you do admit that this is all a lie made up by the priests to make money, well, then you'll leave with toys and your fathers will get good government jobs and it can all be wonderful. So tell us that this is a lie. And they said, you're going to have to kill us. And they took the children off one by one, screaming for their mothers. Look this up. This actually happened. 1913. This isn't the Dark Ages. Well, of course, they didn't kill the children, and a mob had formed to rescue the children. And they said, don't worry, because on October 13th, our Blessed Mother will give a sign for everyone to see. So October 13th, 1917, a crowd of about 60,000 people gathered. And it was cold and wet and rainy and muddy. This big field where these children used to pasture their sheep had been trampled into mud. And the crowd was in a pretty bad mood. And the socialist communist administrators, the Marxists who ran that part of Portugal, decided, well, this was going to solve the problem. When nothing happened, of course, the children would be ripped limb from limb. Well, at noon, nothing happened. That was because the government had changed the clocks. They had somehow, for some reason, set the clocks to match the time at the war front in the First World War, the battlefront. Well, when it was solar noon, all of a sudden the sun peeked through the clouds, and then the sun began to fall from the sky. And for about 13, 14, 15 minutes, the sun just exploded in the show of light over the heads of the people in this large field, and then flew back up to its position, and they were clean and dry, and the field was dry and solid, and 6 months later, the Marxist socialist government of Portugal fell, changing the history of Europe. That really happened. I remember the pastor of the town I grew up in, Monsignor O'Brien, would tell the story. He was a student in Rome, and he said all over southern Europe you could see something happening in the sky, and he remembered the sun quivering even in Rome. Well, what is that? Well, it's a visitation. God visited his people.